Willow Springs is perhaps the antithesis to Formula One's glitz and glamour. Far away from major cities and known for only hosting club racing and track days, it's definitely a smaller venue. But these old race cars are going to fit right in with the fast sweeping curves and challenging layout it presents. Let's see who can make it their home as we get ready to watch round 9 of the Lotus 79 Sunday Grand Prix Series. And you'll see it all live here on the Global SimRacing Channel. Hi, I'm Joe Peak, and joining me in the booth is Roush Racing driver Joey Atterbury. Behind the scenes is our director, Ryan Bauer, and he's using cameras provided by Dougie Beard. Tucked away in the California desert, this is an unlikely haven for high-end race cars. Let's take a closer look at it with our track guide. Welcome to Willow Springs International Raceway. As the oldest permanent road course in the U.S., it holds a particular place of distinction among American motorsports fans. The circuit is just an hour and a half north of Los Angeles, and because of this, it has been used in various films and TV shows over the years. With only 9 turns over 2.5 miles, or just over 4 kilometers, you'd think it's a pretty simple affair. But the incredible camber, numerous elevation changes, and some diabolically fast corners means there's complexities here to keep drivers busy for years. The downside is that there are a few heavy braking zones throughout the lap, and most are not in a straight line. Rabbits Ear and Turn 9 each require the driver to carry tremendous speed and aim for frighteningly late apexes. Meanwhile, the run past the Budweiser balcony all the way through the Monroe Ridge takes you on a roller coaster of rises and drops, all while dipping left and right with wild changes in banking. Sadly, there are a few series that visit the track in present day, but it stays extremely active through club racing, driver coaching, and private test days. It has long been a favorite for both fans and drivers, and once you get onto the track, it'll be easy to see why. Oh, for an old school car, this is definitely, I would say, an old school style track, Joey.
An old school low grip style track in the middle of the high desert of Rosamond, California. Not much around this place. 9 turns, 2.5 miles long. Really is a fast and flowing racetrack. Your biggest and best passing opportunity, Castrol Corner, also known as Turn 1. But then it actually is a good elevation climb all the way up to what you see. The Budweiser balcony up there has a slight dip down. You got to be really careful. I mentioned it's low grip. We're in the middle of the desert. There's sand that gets blown all over this racetrack. But then the final couple corners, the sweeper here, turns 8 and 9, extremely fast, well over 100 miles an hour, and it definitely tightens at the end. So beware of flying off the track on the very last corner.
I wouldn't be surprised if we saw a few drivers do that. But in the F1 standings, Pauli Parton, with his 2 recent wins, is stretching away from Jukka Tolvanen, whose drop weeks are helping him out somewhat. He's the only of those top 3 that have finished outside the podium so far this season. Topi Kortiniemi needs to strike back. He's been struggling up against those 2 teammates over the course of the season. Down behind them, it's kind of a battle for best of the rest outside of those top 3. Clapper leading the way, interestingly, and Juho Raina has been at times fast, but he seems a bit mistake-prone, almost the opposite of what we've got from Jason Clapper, who tends to climb through the field starting from the back. But we have an F2 standings in this series as well. Let's let Joey go through that.
It's really starting to close up at the front. Sam Ryman chasing Bjorn Ackerman, only 5 points separating those 2 drivers. Then a little bit of a gap to that third place car of Peter Konechny tightens up further down the order. Only 4 points separating. I see Thomas Silbernagel, Andrew Thomas, Keith Herner. You might as well throw Gregory Woods and Cam Porter in the mix there, all separated by about 15 points for that 6th place position.
Going to be 35 laps around here, with it being such a short lap for round 9. It is open setup. I'm expecting a lot of drivers to try and make the car fast in a straight line, but also try and make it quick through some of these swift sweeping corners. So it might be a bit of a compromise. We'll talk about that more later. They don't have a spare car if they do run into some damage. There's not a lot of walls to hit, but you could definitely damage the car in some various places around this track. Drive-through penalty at 17 incidents and a DQ at 25, just as normal.
We're in the midst of qualifying right now with about half of it left to go. And Pauli Partanen does have the provisional pole, but how about this? The controller king, Phil Reed, is currently in second. Now he gets bumped down to third.
It'll be really interesting to see how this qualifying session plays out with only 4 minutes left on the board. Most of the drivers have already taken their time. We're only doing about a 1 minute lap time around Willow Springs here. So I'm curious, is anybody going to wait and kind of see what everybody else throws down, then go out on the track? Because it seems like Pauli Partanen already thrown his stuff down.
And it is pretty cool out on the track. I mean, cold, actually. And wonder if, a little bit of heat could help maybe get the tires up to temperature quicker, potentially, instead of what we usually hope for, which is a cooler track to keep them from overheating. Juho Raina, who currently sits in fifth on his second time around, comes down to the line, a 104.1. Will it be less than that as he crosses a 103.4? Yes, it is. That will put him on the front row, actually.
Really nice final lap from that number 7 car. You're right, snuck onto that front row. James Berry now coming around the final corner here. You see how fast in sweeping this turn really is. A little bit of camber to help you with that grip, and then it launches you down the straightaway.
And he'll cross the line with his only timed lap at a 105.4. His first one was missed and got deleted. So he will have to hang on to that one, hope that nobody can go faster than him. Looks like Dylan is kind of taking your advice here. This is his first flying lap here.
Sometimes it's nice to see what everybody puts down. You can bring up that relative box. I shouldn't say relative, but the standings box in your cockpit there, so you can see. All right, I see Pauli a 103.4, Topi's at a 103.7, Phil Reed at a 104.0. You kind of know what lap times you're going to do based off of practice. You kind of have an idea of how hard you need to push it.
Up and over Monroe Ridge, and then plunges down towards the sweeper here. Let's watch from on board as he tries to tackle this one easily flat out in these cars through the first part, but watch him drift wide and try to open it up for that last right-hander as it squeezes tighter and tighter. He's on to the main straight. Couldn't quite see if he made it down to the apex, but he'll cross the line for the first time lap, and it is a 104.9. And that will put him only in 12th. A little far down for what we're used to seeing from Dylan, but he gets a second try.
And remember, these tires, they do take a little bit to warm up, so maybe this second lap going to be faster than the first lap. And Joe, I was checking out the speeds that Dylan was doing in that final turn, the sweeper. He went in 165 miles an hour. When he had to tighten at the end, he was only down to a minimum speed of 148.
That is incredibly quick for coming into a corner curved. I'm sure it's terrifying in these cars, but Freckleton has this one more chance at it. Worth noting that up at the top, while it is a little bit spread apart behind them between most of the times, between Partanen and Raina, it is only 3 thousandths of a second apart from one another. With it being such a short lap, that's kind of what we expected. This time, as it comes down out of the final corner, can he improve on the 12th place? I think he's going to want that, considering he usually is vying for top 5 finishes. It's a 104.1. That's much quicker, and that will put him in 6th.
Yeah, much, much better, more reflective of Dylan's true speed there.
Which means our grid is now set for today. Partanen will take the pole, which comes with 2 bonus points, and Raina will start next to him. Topi Kortinemi will start from P3, and Phil Reed will be in 4th. After that, row 3 sees Seamus Power starting 5th, and it's Dylan Freckleton in P6, as we saw him just take his time. Keith Herner starts 7th today, as Timothy Reed will begin in 8th. Gernot Friesche, surprisingly far down, starting from 9th, and he'll be flanked by Barry West in 10th.
And then we have Jean-Francois Boscus in 11th place. Sam Ryman in that F2 points championship battle is going to be starting in 12th. On row number 7 is Luca Bercali in the number 8 car, joined by James Berry in 14th place. Then we have AJ Roper in 15th, the final qualifying effort. And then Jason Clapper will start 16th with Cam Porter, our in-car camera today, starting 17th.
a little bit farther down, but Pauli Partanen could be the first one to break this 2-2-2 pattern that we're seeing for drivers as they start to grid up now. Everybody has won in pairs. Partanen won the last two, but he was the first one to get more than just the 2 wins overall over the course of the season. If he wins if he wins again, then he'll be the first to break that pattern. But if Topi wins, he could carry it on by winning this one and the next one. So it's a kind of a wait and see. Or maybe Juho Raina could finally break what has happened with these 3 just holding those top spots all season long. Only 3 different drivers have won so far in the 8 races that we have held. Still waiting on the front row to find their way to the grid here. Going to be a short run uphill into Castrol Corner, and it is a sweeping left-hander. I'm not even sure they're going to be doing much braking on this first lap into that turn. So as they come ready to go, it looks like we just need Raina and Partanen. There is Juho onto the grid. I think that means that our pole sitter is the last one that we need to get racing here today. He's got about 20 seconds. He's going to give it time, it appears, before he is happy either with the setup or with the timing of everything. He is now on the grid. The engines will start to rev here for round 9 in California as the lights come up. And the green flag is out. Juho Raina is not very good off the line. In fact, Topi Korteniemi is going to easily get past him by the time they get up to turn 1, and he's able to chop down in front of him by the time he gets there. Someone goes wide. I think that's Freckleton off course. He's able to keep it from spinning around, but he loses a ton of places as they hit Rabbit's Ear.
All of that track position lost from that qualifying effort, but you're right, it is Partanen leading the way. It was that number 7 red car of Juho Raina that lost that second place position. Topi Korteniemi now occupies it, and Jean-Francois Bosca's having problems.
2 cars off on the first lap, but no major wrecks is the good news so far. Halfway through the lap as they now head back downhill off of Budweiser Balcony and over Monroe Ridge. This is where it starts to pick up. And was that our leader going off? It was. Pauli Partanen is off the course, and Topi Korteniemi is your new leader.
And this was just cold tires. You see him rejoining the racetrack, but he is going to fall all the way down. I'm seeing Cam Porter go by him. Topi, Pauli Partanen, 16th place.
Uncharacteristic mistake from him for sure. I hope we get a replay of that one because I had missed what had actually happened. I just looked over and the car was suddenly in the dirt as we come up through the first turn. Once again, Korteniemi ahead of Raina, and now Phil Reed is bumped up to 3rd.
This really blows it open. You were talking about the pairs of wins that were coming to these drivers. Well, guess what? Pauli has won 2 in a row again. It is time. Maybe Topi is going to go carry that torch now.
And like I said, him sitting in 3rd, he needs this. And Tolanen is not here today as we watch Partanen try to make quick moves back up the order, but unfortunately runs into Cam Porter and shoves him off the course unceremoniously. Pauli will have a position, but at what cost?
Yeah, and that was, I think, just a little bit too aggressive from Pauli. I understand he wants to make up those positions. He's so much faster than the cars that he's approaching, but it's still his responsibility to do it safely.
That's not really the way that he usually races. He's not the type to try and shove people out of the way, so I'm sure he'll be very apologetic for that one. But that's of little consolation to Cam. Here is, there's that getting loose moment you were telling me behind the scenes there, Joey.
It just, cold tires. We saw Dylan Freckleton in that qualifying effort. Remember how much faster the second lap was? Well, this was the first lap of the race. Get on the gas. Oh, big wiggle, and honestly, he does a great job to keep it out of the fence.
Yeah, just kind of hits the berm a little bit and is able to get it back on track. So this is when he ran into Cam Porter. We were on board with Pauli before, and it looked aggressive from onboard Pauli and definitely looked like there just was not room from onboard Cam either.
No, and just a bad day for Cam Porter on the racetrack. A bad day for Pauli Partanen, too. Like you said, that's not how he races. That's not what he wanted to do by any means.
Now, Topi leads, but look at Reina. It has been all Finns winning so far, and if Juho wins, then it'll still be Finns up at the top. But he's keeping Topi honest at this stage. We're down to Timothy Reed as well, who is chasing on Keith Herner for 5th position as they head towards turn 1. Takes a little bit of a look and decides to stay behind for now. So look at that, trying to get maybe a bit of an over-under potentially.
It's a difficult place to pass here, Joe. I think turn 1 is your best opportunity. Once you start climbing this elevation, it kind of brings you into a little bit more of a technical area through this, but the brake zones, they're not really big enough to make any sort of lunges next to your competitor to try to make that move.
Yeah, you can really see from on board, Tim, with how much the car is having to dance around and also how bumpy it is here with this not being sort of your billiard smooth Formula One track that they have elsewhere in the world. Good run on Keith Herner. He's going to look down to the inside, coming into the sweeper, and he's going to take it.
165 miles an hour side by side entering that sweeper. Pretty good stuff. And Gernot Frische is now lining him up, and Pauli Parton is working his way through the field. Luca Bercali is square in front of Pauli. You see Pauli really lift off of the gas, and he still slides wide on exit. That's what I was talking about in that final corner. That wing damage, it doesn't help either.
Does look like he's struggling quite a bit. Back to Gernot on Keith Herner. Keith has already lost 1 position in the past lap. Will he lose another just as quickly on this lap around as they head up towards the Budweiser balcony now? A little bit tough to get close enough to try and pass through here. Maybe we'll see it into the sweeper again.
I think that's kind of what you have to line up. Get the good run out of these slow technical bits, if you will. See if Keith Herner is able to put the throttle down, but once again, kind of slides a little bit wide over that crest. I don't think that Gernot's going to be quite close enough, and this is Dylan Freckleton. Remember, he kind of had that early off in turn 1. He is also trying to work his way back.
He's back to 11th already, so he's gained a lot of spots, and he is still behind these two that we were watching before. As we continue to see the perspective from Dylan Freckleton. Gets a good launch down the main straight and up ahead of him. That looks like a pass between Frische and Herner. So Gernot gets up to 6th position now, but no dice for Dylan. He'll stay in 11th.
I can confirm that. Just a straightforward move by Gernot on turn 1 here. You see him line up Keith Herner, the red and white car, directly in front of him down the straightaway, and it's just a classic textbook move here into turn 1. If anything, Keith is very generous right here.
Almost looked like a lift or something there, because he gained on him a lot quicker than I think I would have anticipated, but
agreed.
Regardless, that's 6th place now for the number 2 machine. Timothy Reed next on his list, needs about 2.5 seconds to get up to him on the track. Reed's been really coming alive lately in a lot of the vintage cars, although I don't think we've seen him over in the Lotus 49s yet. But here and in Camel, he's already got a championship on the Nissans over in Camel and has been looking quite fast in the Lotuses.
Well, and speaking of other vintage series, Joe, yesterday, Dylan Freckleton, as we watch James Berry now to the inside of Keith Herner, he takes away that 7th place position. Now, maybe Keith is going to have to figure out something on the racetrack to keep some of these cars behind him. But to talk about what I was mentioning, Dylan had a really good run the other day, or I should say yesterday, in the GTPs, was on the podium at Jerez.
Well, I mean, just a lot of these drivers seem to hop between these and really enjoy these older machines and how basic they are, but at the same time, very difficult to master. But we're back up to our top spot with Juho still chasing on Topi. He's about a second behind right now, so he's not within attacking distance, but he's still making sure that he can't make any mistakes. And from what we've seen today, Joey, mistakes are very easy to make at this track.
I said, it's a low grip racetrack. I mean, just look at the scenery. There is nothing around this place. You are in the middle of the desert, and it looks like Keith Herner, he is going to fight back now. He is side by side with James Berry down the front straightaway. He's on the wrong side going into turn 1. How deep on the brakes can he go? It's going to be James Berry back into 7th.
So Barry over Herner. I feel like Keith is just struggling with something. I'm not sure if he got some damage or maybe he got the setup wrong, but it looks like the car is not happy today. He's only down one spot from where he started, but he's been bleeding those positions quite quickly as we ride with Freckleton, who's not far behind. In fact, there's a bit of a train almost forming, it looks like.
I think this orange and white car of Barry West, you're right, he's kind of holding him up just a little, but right in front of Barry is Keith Herner, the car that we've been talking about. So Barry is closing in on the group in front of him. However, he's still holding up a few cars that are catching up behind. It's that accordion effect, Joe. Everybody is condensing into the same spot.
Including Freckleton condensing onto the back of Barry West, but that dirty air through the final corner looks diabolical and just can't seem to keep up with him. Fastest lap goes to Reina. That is also worth 2 bonus points, so we've got a replay. Let's take a look at what happened to Bercali.
He's coming up the hill. I believe this is the same turn that we saw Pauli Parton and Cam Porter have that incident. He just clipped the inside curb there, if you noticed. Oh! Not sure who that was that got into the back of him there. Oh, was this Sam Ryman? Oh, no.
The safe pair of hands, unfortunately, couldn't avoid this, it looks like, as the car tried to get turned around. And, yeah, that door shut right at the last moment on Sam.
Yeah, didn't really have an option to go outside or inside. And sometimes that does happen on the racetrack.
Well, I believe Sam is still running is the good news, so it didn't hit hard enough that took him out of the race. He's in 15th, Bercali in front of him in 14th. Freckleton, P10 with Barry West still in front of him. If he can survive the dirty air off the final turn, maybe he can get a better chance into Castro Corner. No dice, though, just not quite close enough.
So you keep talking about this dirty air in that final turn. Combine that with what I mentioned, the low grip racetrack. We're in the middle of the desert, so you have sand being blown across this thing all the time. All of the bumps that you were seeing earlier as well. It is not a smooth racetrack. Combine that, Joe. Doing 165 miles an hour, is that what I said in the final turn? And the dirty air. These drivers, they got their handful just kind of searching for whatever grip they can find.
James Barry, interestingly, is the biggest mover, even though we saw Clapper was up 4. Barry's up 7 right now. Remember, James fighting for 4th in the championship for the F1 standings. And for those not familiar with this series, the F1 and F2 is only separated by driver iRating, so that is not different vehicles out there. Jason Clapper on board with him. Looks like he's got a good chance with A.J. Roper.
But it's all about this final turn. You fight that dirty air, but I think he is close enough right underneath the rear wing of A.J. Roper. Roper's not going to defend, so Jason Clapper inside on turn number 1, a little bit deeper on the brakes, claims that 11th place position.
So make that 5 now for Jason. And Pauli Partonen is in pit lane. Did he have more problems, or is he just...
I think, Joe, just given the damage that he had, given how difficult it is to pass around this place, he was so far back and he wasn't making any headway. I think he might have raised the white flag.
In the distance, I thought I saw a car off up a Budweiser balcony. I think that was Keith Herner in the 17. So another issue for Keith, dropping him many more positions with all the cars that were lined up behind him. I suspect they made quick work slipping through. Let's see how bad of an off this was, though. Whoa! Big snap.
Yeah, and it's a low grip racetrack. The same, and Joe, if you notice, that corner, that's that same corner that we've seen a lot of problems in so far.
You know, it takes me back to when the Lotus 49s came here. That was a turn that caught a lot of drivers out, and that's a non-downforce car. I think it just seems like it's just a difficult turn to get right.
You set them up for the higher speed corners, and when you get to the slow speed stuff, you're really relying on whatever mechanical grip you can find. So you try to jump those curbs, you try to slam it into the camber on the track, and sometimes it's just not there for you, and it's easy to overstep the limit when you are pushing.
So down to 0.3 of a second. Juho has cut this by a lot to Topi Korteniemi, and we still have a lot of race left to go. We're not that far into this thing, so this battle for the lead is definitely on, and they're running away from Phil Reed, who has now dropped to about 1.5 seconds behind. You can still see him in the distance, but definitely not as close as P1 and P2. There's how far he is away as we hop on board with Phil.
Go through the very fast turn 1. Up into the climbing turn number 2, go through a pair of sweeping right-handers before you reach this tricky left-hander. This is the corner that everybody's having problems with. Really slow the car down. Oh, and you see Phil Reed struggling with the front end grip. He's trying to get these front wheels to turn, but just lots of understeer.
Yeah, trying his best to try and keep up, but it's looking like it is quite tough for him. Remember, as we call him the controller king, he's racing on an Xbox controller, but he's very, very good with it. And I'm sure it's tough with these more sweeping corners where he doesn't need as quick of inputs, needs them to be very smooth. But we watch them now come out of the final turn and jump back to Jason Clapper. Up 6 positions. He gained another one. He's catching up to James Berry on that hard charger. Doesn't mean anything but pride. And he's got 2 directly in front of him. That's Freckleton and West.
And see what kind of run he can get out of the final turn. And oh, there's a big mistake out of Dylan Freckleton. He had to come out of the gas. That's going to give an opportunity here to Jason Clapper. I don't think he's quite close enough in turn 1. Just that brake zone there, it's not quite big enough to make a huge lunge.
He's going to look around the outside, though, maybe try to set him up for the over-under as Barry defends down into Rabbits here. It climbs uphill all the way until the exit, levels out, and then more uphill in the next corner. Another lunge to the inside, but nothing there for Dylan Freckleton. So he's going to have to stay put, and now he's got to watch out because Jason Clapper is getting very close to that gearbox.
And I'm sure that Barry West is loving this right now because he's had so much pressure from Freckleton, and you see that purple car really slide wide, trying to use as much of the racetrack as he can find, but that's going to put Jason Clapper firmly in the position to try to make an overtake. He's going to have to sit through this dirty air, through the sweeper. Can he do another pass on the front straightaway?
He's going to be close if he can hold on. Ooh, this is looking good for Jason. Unfortunately for him, Dylan's also going to get a bit of a pull, so it won't be as dramatic as maybe we expect. He shows his nose, but no dice.
And we haven't really talked too much about setup, Joe, as Barry West continues to run that defensive line shallow into turn number 2, but we haven't been seeing too many cars close on the straightaway with the exception of one, Jason Clapper. I'm curious if he maybe has a click or 2 less of that rear wing just to try to help him on that top end.
I wouldn't be too shocked by it, and I also wouldn't be surprised if Barry West has maybe more downforce because he tends towards that from what he's told us in the past. It's getting really backed up now between this group because not only is Jason there, that's AJ Roper in there.
Dylan now really on the back of Barry, trying to find a way around, but we've seen it so many times through the sweeper here. There's just nowhere to go. You have to sit through this dirty air, try to get the run out of this final tightened apex.
Oh, and he just got too much aero wash coming off the corner. It set him backwards as close as he was on the way into the turn. The 4 stay equidistant as we jump on board with AJ. Look at the different lines they all take through Castrol Corner. And again, everybody with practically a different line into Rabbit's Ear.
And they're just such long corners, Joe. I feel like you can kind of search for that clean air as long as you're accelerating up through. However, when you get to these brake zones, you notice they get nice and tidy.
Indeed, and up through Budweiser balcony. It's where they finally do have some walls very close. Off into the dirt goes Roper. He's going to lose touch with the group.
Just as simple as putting one wheel off on the grass. And here comes Jason Clapper, as close as he's ever been, already side by side with Freckleton. This is not a traditional passing area. It has to be cooperation from both drivers. It looks like Dylan knows that Jason Clapper is there. How far can they stay side by side? Clapper moves up to 9th.
tries to cut back underneath him, actually does pretty well on it. Clapper's looking forward, but Dylan might be able to fight back into Castrol corner. He thinks about it and then rethinks it. He'll get in line.
Yeah, now it's going to be Jason setting the target sights on that orange and white car. And it's Barry West who's been leading this group. Remember, Barry's been doing a tremendous job. Hasn't made any sort of mistakes on the racetrack. He's had mirrors full the last handful of laps.
Clapper doing an excellent job on a track where it is so hard to pass, especially in these cars, which are quick through the fast corners. With braking is very light through most of the corners on this circuit, and down the hill they go. Last time he was able to get the run on Freckleton. Can he do it on Barry? It does look like he's got a good bit of speed. He's being given the inside as Barry West does not defend, and there's the job done.
Well, Joe, when I talked about the track map, I said turn one was the best passing opportunity, but Jason Clapper is proving to me that into the sweeper, if you can get the run out of those technical corners, it can provide you the drive off that you need into that sweeper corner.
Kind of becomes a straight effectively in these cars, but back on the attack. Barry West thought about it, but Jason Clapper says no. He'll hold on to 8th place, making him 8 positions up.
As we ride on board here, Barry has just done a tremendous job. I mentioned he hasn't made any sort of mistakes. Really, the first car that he let by was Jason Clapper, and can't, fault him too much. Jason actually has some really good pace right now. I noticed his last lap time with that pass, a 104.5. That's good enough to be inside the top 5.
Here with Timothy Reed now. He's fighting for 4th place with Seamus Power. I haven't really talked a whole lot about Seamus. He's been running a bit of a quiet race, up 1 from where he started in 4th. 2 wheels into the dirt certainly does not help Tim, and he drops back.
I was going to mention Seamus earlier, but you're right. He's had a very quiet race, but I think this is a good performance out of Mr. Power here. Had a good qualifying effort, has been able to hang it inside the top 5 here and handling some good pressure behind him.
Do love the old IndyCar nod with the Valvoline 711 paint scheme that Seamus has on his vehicle. Is now watching from Timothy Reed once again, looking forward on Power. They've definitely fallen off the leaders. It's unlikely we'll see them try and challenge for a podium unless one of the cars ahead has a big issue, because it's currently about 7 seconds up to 3rd place from these two. And up and over the ridge, much better exit for Seamus Power, puts him out of reach.
All about getting that arm's distance away, then that dirty air really becomes a factor. It's so difficult to close that gap, but through the final sweeper one more time. Let's see if Timothy Reed can close up at all. You just see that final apex, you really have to lift off of the throttle. You have to count on that front end grip when it's not there and you need it the most.
Has there been a connection issue for Topi Kortaniemi? Because he's suddenly grayed out. And I'm trying to see, I didn't see an accident. So I fear Topi may lose an opportunity for a win, not through his own making, not through his own mistake, but just the nature of the internet sometimes. Juho Raina has inherited the lead unless Topi will reappear out of the ether.
It's so unfortunate. He was leading the race. And you're right, I don't see any sort of incidents, but this is our leader, the red number 7 of Juho Raina.
And don't forget, he is chasing Jason Clapper for 4th in the championship. A win will help him out tremendously. And I need to check. I'm pretty sure last time I was looking through the stats, I found out Juho had not won a race, but I'll see if that's still the case.
We'll go back and double check everything right now. It's Phil Reed with the purple fastest lap. So despite Juho being out in front, maybe chasing Topi was what he needed, that fishing line out in front there to have that extra helping of speed. But officially, Topi Kortaniemi has dropped out of the server, Joe. Now, it is now official.
Wow, not what we expected this race. Pauli Partanen gone. Topi Kortaniemi gone. Juho Raina with a shock front row start and a chance to take his first win. I can confirm he's never taken a win in the broadcast races here in the Lotus 79 Sunday Grand Prix Series. Phil Reed will try to deny him. As you said, he set the fastest lap of the race last time by it at 1:03.3. He is looking lightning quick here late in the race.
And he has that. I'm curious to see how it'll all play out. Yuho doesn't have that draft, doesn't have that car in front of him, so he's the one breaking that clean air, making that tow possible for the car behind.
So he's got a number of laps to do it. This is honestly, maybe it's just the number of laps that we're doing. This has felt like a longer race than typical. Maybe it's all just the drama that we've had unleash out there. But these two picking up the mantle after it looked like it was going to be Topi who was going to control this race. They fly back down the hill once again. And Phil Reed still hanging in by about 0.7 of a second, but not gaining as quickly this time.
And I think that with 14 laps to go, or I should say coming to 13 laps, since we only have 2 turns left in this quarter, in this lap here, it's going to be how much have you paid attention to your tires early on. We've talked about how low grip this place is, so how much have you saved for the end?
As they fly down the front stretch, Reed down to about 4/10 maybe. Once again, front stretch providing plenty of chance to try and gain ground. So fast this circuit. The slipstream looks to be a bit of a factor if you can hold on tight behind, especially through the long corners. There you can see the distance between them at the bottom of your screen as they ease their way uphill towards the top of the track, and it stays at about 4.5 between them, but Phil continues to be a serious threat.
I'm watching the 2 different lines as they go through these technical corners here. It seems like Yuho has a good grasp on the setup that he's got underneath him, so he understands his machine. He's not pushing the limit too far like we've seen some of the other drivers, and we've seen when you push the limit too far, it just snaps out on you with the speeds that you are going at this place. Yuho just needs to keep on doing what he's been doing. Oh, big wiggle out of Phil Reed.
He's trying. He's not giving this one up. Love to see that. We'll take another look at this one.
I mentioned 150 miles an hour here, Joe. Oh, I don't think you can possibly have that fast of hands unless you're maybe Luke Skywalker with a false arm.
Exactly. Phil does have 1 win so far in his career in the Lotus 79s on these broadcast races, but he hasn't won this season. So can he try and spoil it for Yuho here? Kind of amused in our YouTube chats at Pauli Partonen when our admin had teased that he should buy Cam Porter dinner. Pauli said, "I'm sure dinner is not enough."
You know, I'm sure that Cam would be plenty happy with a couple really nice pieces of wood that he can turn into some artwork over there. Maybe even recreate Pauli smashing into the back of him, you know, give it to him back as a gift, a present to remember him by.
I just was thinking that, honestly. He needs to immortalize the moment with a sculpture. I don't know if he has the time and the means to do that, but Cam, we'd love to see that maybe. We'll see what happens. Is look at this. It's getting close behind them as Timothy Reed had a much better run off the final corner on Seamus Power. This is now for the podium position because of Topi Kortaniemi blinking out, and another mistake from Seamus Power is going to open the door. Timothy Reed goes around the outside. He is now on the podium.
Has the higher speed nature of turn 1, the downforce levels, the bumpiness of the racetrack. Seamus Power here just had that mistake like you called out. And guess what? Timothy Reed was right there to pounce, but now it is all in the hands of that red number 6 car being on the podium. He sees that 3rd place position in his relative box. Can he hang on to it with the pressure behind him now?
I know climbing from the back and seeing huge numbers up as James Berry is up 8 and Jason Clapper's up 9. Those are always impressive. But for me, climbing the order in the top spots is always a much more impressive feat. So up 5 for Timothy Reed and being on the podium says that he is just on the ball today. Cutting back down to the apex, Seamus Power doesn't look like he's got an answer down the front stretch.
And he went really, really wide in the sweeper, tried to get some of that clean air on the nose and then cut it back. But you're right, just wasn't quite close enough to do anything about it. However, a lot of times we see a pass be made and they just simply run off into the distance. It does not seem that way. It certainly seems like Seamus Power wanting to be on the podium still.
He knows there's a good opportunity here if he can just keep tight to the back of that number 6, up and around Budweiser balcony, and back down the hill they go. He's certainly close enough that he could do it before this is over. It could take the tiniest of hiccups, as we saw from Seamus, to just snatch that position right back down towards the sweeper, where we've seen a lot of passes here today. He's going to reel him in bit by bit with the slipstream, but then comes the difficult part as it tightens up.
You see just that dirty air. You have to fight your way all the way through it. At least you have a little bit of camber on the racetrack to help you out. But then once again, this start-finish straightaway is just not quite long enough for Seamus Power to really use the toe. And then the braking zone, not quite big enough to make the lunge.
I think there's going to be some drivers that get some good iRating today, because number 1, Topi, is back in the pits after his disconnect, so he's going to finish far down. Number 3, Pauli Partanen, 16th, as he's retired from this race. Number 2, Gernot Friesche, he's still only in 5th. So there is definitely going to be some happy people out here that will take some scalps.
Well, and you mentioned Gernot Friesche. He's the car behind this battle that we're watching, and he is nowhere close. I mean, he is 5 seconds back. You can just barely see him coming into frame here. So Gernot having a very, very lonely race. Joe, I've done it before. It's fun to do laps, but trust me, I'm sure that he is waiting to get out of there and see the checkered flag.
Not much to do except just focus. Oh, Seamus Power now has the run. Reed's the one that makes the mistake off the final corner, round the outside. Tim cannot fight it. He has to get back in behind him.
This is what I love to see, is that when you get past, you don't give up. You still have the fight to go back and take the charge. And now it's Seamus Power back on the podium. It's up to Timothy Reed to redo it all over again.
He's got to be kicking himself for that one. He had it handed to him on a silver platter, and he gave it right back to him. So can he do anything, or is he going to have to wait for another mistake? I mean, that's kind of been the story of a lot of the overtakes here today. It's not down the raw pace. It's you got to wait patiently for the door to open.
And I can report, while we're going to stay right here, Phil Reed almost had a spin, so that is up to 4 seconds now, or almost 3.5 seconds between first and second place. And Joe, guess what? It was in that same left-hander that we've seen so many drivers have trouble.
Not too shocked, but looks like we've got a driver that had trouble in a different spot. Pauli Partanen is with us. Pauli, commiserations. This one didn't quite go as you wanted, but what happened on the first lap?
Well, I didn't practice a lot this week. I actually started practicing like yesterday, or had some laps on Friday, so I was surprised how slippery that first lap is, and yeah, just like a talent and cold tires were very slippery. I didn't expect that at all.
Yeah, it definitely looked like you were caught out. It surprised us, because usually we don't see that many mistakes out of you. This does continue the pattern, and no driver has managed to get more than a back-to-back wins in this season. So, I mean, do you feel like Juho can keep it up and get 2 for his first?
Well, Juho had great pace this week, so I'm super happy for him. He almost beat me at quali, and I think he has never been that close to quali win, and now he's winning the race, so I'm sure this will give him a confidence boost. And I've noticed during the years that if you want to be a fast driver, confidence is key. So, you know, I'm sure he can do something next week.
We've seen that this is kind of a divisive track on opinions. Now that you've raced it, how do you feel about it?
I'm sad that I didn't really race this race. I will maybe have a better opinion if I finish this one, but I did the race before, and this was super fun to drive. The wind was very surprising here. Like now, the wind direction is way different than it was on the last race. So that might be one of the things why I spun on first lap. I don't know, but the wind situation was hard this week. But super fun track. I think this is great for racing and great for driving. So I like it.
Well, again, hopefully we'll see with some better results next week, and look forward to having you out for VIR.
Yeah, thanks.
That was Pauli Partanen, who DNF'd today, unfortunately. Things getting close in the meantime between Reed and Power. I thought maybe he was going to have a try at things into turn 1, but wasn't quite close enough. In the meantime, I think Joey has caught hold of Topi Korteniemi, another one of our drivers that's out early.
Topi, it's got to feel like heartbreak for you today. Was it just an internet loss issue?
Yeah, it was just the internet. Conveniently, just for 1 or 2 minutes, enough to drop from the server. But yeah, it happens.
So unfortunate. I can only kind of relate it to maybe having a transponder go out in a real race car and the timing and scoring stops working for you. But what did you feel of Willow Springs here today? It seemed like Pauli really liked the racing that it brought.
Yeah, it would be interesting to race with Pauli because I think I was running less wind than him, and the weather really made this week interesting because it was up to 50 kilometers per hour wind and changing direction, and that changes how you have to take the turn, especially the fast ones. Like with this wind, I got massive understeer last turn, and I had to relearn it again in this race. But yeah.
Very unfortunate to see. We had our fingers crossed that you were going to get your 2 wins in a row, going to start off here at Willow Springs, but very unfortunate to see you have to retire here today. And will we see you next week at VIR?
Oh, yeah. I'm going to start my 3 win in a row.
Awesome. Well, good luck here next week, and thank you very much for coming out. Sorry about the problems on the internet today.
Yeah, thanks, Joe.
That was Topi Korteniemi, unfortunately in early retirement today.
We've continued to watch the battle between Power and Reed. Still, Tim has not been able to make his way past. Behind them, I think there's a battle starting to open up between West and Roper. And there's actually a quite exciting battle happening as cutting back. AJ has managed to overtake Barry. We're going to need a replay of that one. It was a great move that he pulled up at the top of the hill at a very uncommon place for overtakes at this track. And Roper looks like he is going to take off quickly.
Certainly seems that way. I think that we've got a GSRC replay. The first up is going to be another unfortunate incident for this purple number 5 car of Dylan Freckleton. That's turn 1, and turn 1 has been Dylan's nemesis today. That was a much bigger off than what he had on lap 1, and this was that pass with AJ Roper you saw, Joe.
It happened almost right after that incident, so perfect timing there. But watch this. AJ sets him up, gets him, I think, a little bit offline from what I could tell. Yeah, a little mistake there from Barry. Sees an opening on the inside, shoves himself into what little hole he can see, and Barry's going to try and defend, but just enough of cutting back underneath him and gets the job done. That was a brilliant piece of work by AJ.
Yeah, nice driving there. And like you said, he just sets off into the distance. Gonna say peace out to anybody behind him as we catch up with more battles on the racetrack. This is Jason Clapper now right behind James Barry. He wants another position. You see James Barry going defensive into turn 1. Clapper around the outside. Can he make it work? A huge wiggle and still side by side entering turn 2.
Hard charger pride between these two, I am sure, and Clapper is not willing to hand over the crown quite yet. He is going to get past him, but he's not completely clear. James Barry going to try to go around the outside, coming up into turn 4. He's got the wheel in as they hit Budweiser balcony. Inside line surely going to be an advantage, and it is.
Yeah, but how much did he drift out wide? Because this section is that run, that power down section to the sweeper that we've seen Jason Clapper have such a good time at today. But James Barry equally puts that power down, a nice run out.
White flag for Juho Rainer, who now has the fastest lap as well. Remember, 2 bonus points there for him. Could he finally get that first win? Is way too wide, unfortunately, for Jason Clapper. May have put paid in that battle for 6.
Yeah, I think so, as we jump up to our leader at the highest section of the racetrack, just at the foothills of those mountains. Has to dive down through a couple slow tiddly bits here before he accelerates up through the sweeper for a final time.
Fast down the hill towards the sweeper for the number 7. He had it handed to him a little bit here, but from pace that we saw in qualifying, I'd say that Juho was going to be a quick man today regardless. out of that last turn. Finally, a win for the number 7 as Juho Rinne takes victory here in California.
A long time coming, and you can see the happy wiggles out of that driver there as he goes through turn number 1. Congratulations on that win.
Timothy Reed is going to be just shy of the podium today. Seamus Power earned that one for sure. And Gernot Friesche gets himself a top 5 here today. Freckleton's trying to fight his way back. He's close to Bricali, as it looks like James Berry will beat out Jason Clapper, although James was down 1 on number of positions gained. So maybe Jason still holds that crown today in that sense. Back to Freckleton. Looks like, he's going to try to go the long way around Bricali. Guards the inside, but it's not enough as Dylan fights back and he takes it on the last corner.
Wow, what a move from Freckleton. And I can report that Barry West almost snagged back that position from AJ Roper at the end. Joe, 5/100ths of a second he missed out on.
So close. That's going to take us to a quick break, though. We'll be back with the official results as well as driver interviews coming your way.
Racing isn't easy, but experiencing it is. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat with the industry's leading sim racing game. Drive on laser scan replicas of the greatest racing circuits from around the world. Go head-to-head against other drivers chosen by skill-based matchmaking to ensure competitive racing at every level. Compete across all your favorite series. In officially licensed cars, engineered to deliver the most accurate driving experience possible. Join a race or host your own with players from across the globe. Race against the computer or in a league with friends. Feel the thrill behind the wheel. Visit iRacing.com.
Welcome back to Willow Springs. We got a stunner of a race out here. It might be a little rinky-dink facility compared to some places, but it put on a great show for us. And Juho Rinne, one of those who picked up the pieces when others fell by the wayside and grabbed his first ever win in the Sunday Grand Prix Series. Phil Reed followed him home in second. Mistakes unfortunately cost him a chance to get his second win in the series, and Seamus Power wraps up a podium for himself from 5th on the grid. Timothy Reed followed him home in 4th as Gernot Friesche was P5, and then it was James Berry going from 14th to 6th. Jason Clapper, 16th to 7th. AJ Roper was in a lot of excitement with some good moves at times, but he'll have to settle for 8th place as Barry West was 9th and Keith Herner slipped backwards to 10th.
And then in 11th place, we have Dylan Freckleton with that nice move on one of the final laps there. Luca Bricali is going to be the final car that finishes on the lead lap. Then we have Jean-Francois Boscus 1 lap down. Sam Ryman also 1 lap down. And then unfortunately, the rest, Topi, Pauli, Cam, all did not finish.
Looks like we've got 2nd place ready to talk to us, Phil Reed. Unable to keep up with Rinne. Phil, we saw some big saves out there. I'm sure this was tough with a controller with the long sweeping corners, but was Juho just a little too quick for you today?
Yeah, I mean, that's what it comes down to. Juho just had that over the whole race distance. I think there was a period of time up until the point where I'd started to make a couple mistakes here and there where I thought, maybe there's a chance. But I think I was just burning my tires a little bit too much. And I think those last sort of 7 laps, I think it was, I don't think I'd have been able to pass him. And even if I had, I think I'd have struggled a bit too much with making a few mistakes. I think it'd have just come back past anyway. But it didn't help that lap 28, 29, I was running through the track with a lot of PC stutters. So it was quite tricky driving. I was feeling like a lot of the big mistakes sort of came in. So I think it was 28. I just didn't know where I was really. So.
Well, yeah, it's understandable. I mean, it did look tough, like I said, with a controller. I mean, how was that last turn? Because we saw so many cars look like they went wide out of there.
I'll be honest, actually, the last turn, I don't know whether the wind, I think the wind was blowing it out of it. So it was kind of giving a small bit of understeer compared to sort of like what it could be if it was giving it. And so, but I was typically with the line that I was running, I was able to run it flat the whole way. After a certain, like the first few laps, it was a bit tricky, but then once I got into it, I was able to run it flat every time. And I think I was gaining most laps on basically everybody on that corner. So it wasn't. It was actually pretty decent on the controller, to be honest.
Now, we've had nothing but Finns winning so far this season. You were very close to being the first to kind of break that. Does this give you at least a confidence boost that maybe you can finally break through the Finnish wall?
I like to think so, but at the same time, we had Pauli going off, and I think he would have just had the pace and drove off with it really. And obviously the internet assassins took Topi out. So, it's hard to know, but I like to think, I didn't expect much coming to this. I hadn't really driven it before. I did a race earlier in the week, and that was a bit of a disaster, to be honest, in terms of consistency. And so I wasn't really expecting too much, and I had a lot more pace here than I was expecting. So, but I do think it kind of suits my strengths a little bit it doesn't have the weaknesses, I guess, around this track that a lot of tracks can have in terms of it's very high speed. It's very just chuck the car in and hope for the best kind of thing. It's not super precise in a lot of places, but it was weird because the bit where it was, I was actually quite strong. So hey, who knows? I like to think so.
Well, you made it fun to watch. You were very close for most of the race, and congratulations on a podium.
Thanks, guys.
That was Phil Reed finishing P2, and I believe Joey's caught up with our winner. Juho Rinne has managed to make it here for his first winner's interview.
Juho Rinne, congratulations on your first broadcast win here in the Lotus 79 series.
Yeah, thanks a lot, guys.
How does it feel? Talk to me, man.
Well, it feels really good. It's been tough to try to chase it. I mean, I think I have almost 100 starts at least since like 2014 or something. So it feels really nice to get it finally.
And I know that you were chasing Topi for the first half of the race, and unfortunately an internet issue took him out. Did you feel that you had the pace to go up there and pass him on that raw speed? Because it certainly seemed like you two at the front, you two were the class of the field.
I think I would have had the speed if I got ahead, but unfortunately I was just way down on top speed, so I don't think I could have actually passed him on track. But since I couldn't, I just pressured his internet connection into a mistake.
I like that. If you can't win on the track, you might as well figure out another way to do it. But how did you like true. Willow Springs here? Pauli said that he really liked the racing, the fast speed of this racetrack. What did you feel about this car and track combination?
The track is awesome. I really like it. There's not really any like technical sections that the car dislikes so much. So it's just every corner is just fast. You can really use the downforce. It just feels really nice.
Well,
especially compared to like Interlagos or something.
Yes, definitely. And you keep the Finnish dominance here at the front of the field in this series. Congratulations on your first win. Is there anybody that you want to say hi to or give a shout out to?
I don't know. At least to you guys for the broadcasts. It's really nice to follow them after the races.
Well, thank you, Juho, for coming and racing with us, and congratulations on that win.
Thanks again, guys. Bye.
That was driver of the number 7 car, Juho Rinne.
We've got one more to talk to. Seamus Power finishing on the podium here today. And Seamus, it was a great race between you and Timothy. It looked like it mostly came down to mistakes, both of you having big moments out there.
Yeah, I'll be honest. It feels like I'm dreaming. With Lotus, I mean, I usually sit kind of near the back of or the middle of the field. So when we're coming here to Willow, I was like, well, maybe I like the track. We'll see what happens. But yeah, we both had our mistakes. I think I don't know. It was like maybe tires came into play towards the end there, but I did feel really comfortable apart from maybe one or two minor errors, and I guess that just carried me through.
It all worked out in the end. A half a second difference between you at the line on that one. So many drivers going off today, like we just talked about, mistakes everywhere. What was the grip like? Because it seemed like a lot of drivers were talking about it feeling slippery.
Yeah, I know the practice session right before the race had some crazy wind. It was like, I think I checked before we disconnected, it was like 48-kilometer-an-hour winds or something. I didn't look at the weather for this one, so I don't know if that also came into play. But I know Willow it's a slippery track. I mean, it's in the middle of the desert, so even if the temps don't get high, just how fast the track is, especially with these cars, I knew that, especially in the the Budweiser corner or up there, that's probably the worst part to try and keep the traction going. But otherwise, no, I was able to push a little bit here and there, and apart from like one or two little minor errors, it felt okay. But I can understand that it can be a struggle if you're not used to the track.
Well, one personal question, because I was a bit caught out. UK&I is where you hail from on the club list, but your accent doesn't sound like that. Are you have you moved over across the pond?
Yes, so as from the name, I am Irish. I have a passport, everything. My family lives in Ireland and everything. But I grew up in Canada, so that the accent stuck, and I moved around a bit, and now I'm back here. So,
gotcha. Okay, just definitely caught me off guard. Love the paint scheme on the car, by the way, and congratulations on a podium.
Thank you very much. Really appreciate it, guys.
That was Seamus Power finishing third, which is going to wrap us up. And we want to give a big thank you to the Lotus 79 community for bringing us back for another season of coverage. Also, a thank you to the team today, Joey, Ryan, and Dougie. Make sure to check out our social media, our website, and our merchandise store. And don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel so you don't miss a moment here on GSRC. Next race is going to be at VIR. That'll be Sunday, November 19th at 11:30 a.m. Eastern. But also be sure to check out our other broadcasts that we have listed here, because it's the season finale for the majors, their British Grand Prix at Silverstone, taking off at noon Eastern. Until next time, though, race clean, race hard. We'll see you on the track.
Wow.